Hello there, Internet's MegaMogwai here, and I got another of Runeterra video for guys today, and I gotta say, it feels good to be back with the intro again. That probably makes no sense, but what I'm trying to say is that it feels good to say my intro again, because I actually did miss it, and I never thought I would, because it's just the same phrase every day that I actually mispronounce half of the time, but yeah, I missed it. I just missed saying my intro. I wanted to share. We're back at it with the daily videos, and today we're gonna do a bit of a shorter one though, because we don't have a new champion to discuss, so no 12-year-old React Andy. I cry every time. But we have a new keyword in FATED to talk about, and 5 new Targon cards. Normally, I would not really be that excited for Targon specifically, because spoilers, it's not my favorite region, but I really do like the cards that we got because they promote some archetypes that have received a bit of a boost in the recent past, but now they can go even further. Though some of these cards may have some nasty, wait for it, implications onto decks like Lee Sin, which I'm not so happy about, but it's one of those things where it's not really the card's fault. It's just the fact that Lee Sin exists. And we'll see just how that sort of archetype ends up in the meta after. So without further ado, let's start talking about FATED, the new keyword that says, the first time each round an ally card targets me, grant me +1/+1. We got the Saga Seeker here with that glorious beard, shirtless on the top of the mountain where it's probably like 20 degrees below zero. But he is the FATED. He is the chosen one. He is the Neo of Runeterra. And he gets +1/+1 whenever you target him with a combat trick. This is a very clean keyword design. Not original by any means. You know, we've seen stuff like this implemented in games like Magic the Gathering numerous times before, but I like the design for its simplicity, which, you know, fits the game of Legends of Runeterra, and also because of the fact that it's an ongoing effect. And what I mean by this is that it really does reward you for running combat tricks, but it cannot be abused with stacking up gems, for example. If you build up some gems for like a Mentor of the Stones and you go triple gem on a FATED unit, if the cap didn't exist, then this could get out of hand really easily. It can be pretty toxic, actually. But the fact that it's limited to once per round keeps it clean in that sense. It also allows you to have units that act as sort of like targets for your combat tricks, like enablers to get extra value out of cards like Guiding Touch. Like, and I'm not just talking about like combat tricks that give stats, but also cards that cycle through your deck. Guiding Touch is a good card that can allow you to potentially heal yourself in a pinch, or it can be used now on a FATED unit to give it +1/+1 and cycle through your deck, and thus giving you extra value. I feel like it fits really well the Targonian region, and there's some really nice details, like for example, using cards like the concerted strike effects from Demacia, like those also trigger, and that is very important for a card that we're going to talk about, the most exciting card out of the 5, which I will discuss shortly. And I think you guys know, or have an idea which one I'm mentioning. But ultimately, I just really like the way they implement it, and I think it's straightforward, but it really does succeed at enabling self-targeting to reach higher levels within Targon. So first of all, we got the Saga Seeker, who is a 1-mana 1/2 with FATED. Pretty straightforward. When it comes to 1-drops, I always say there's not that much you can do with them, even though we have Kennen, which is kind of like, the more I think about Kennen, the more I think he's going to be pretty insane, right? Especially because people have been pointing out that, you know, he can work with the Dragonlings and the Blades spawning as, you know, they are summoned, right? So yeah, that can be, we may see a situation in which Kennen becomes more powerful than even the likes of Zoe. Nonetheless, for the most part, especially when it comes to followers, 1-drops are 1-drops, and they are limited to a series of stats, you know, and they're more encapsulated compared to, I don't know if that makes sense, but if you compare it to like a 5-drop, you have more flexibility to, you know, either go crazier on the power stat line or the health stat line, or the ability. Like you can be more creative with that. But with 1-drops, they have to be all near the same power level, and thus, you know, we get Saga Seeker right here, which is really good. Honestly, I feel like a 1-mana 1/2 with FATED, like in the right deck, every time you apply something like a Pale Cascade or a Guiding Touch or any sort of combat trick onto it, the fact that it continues to grow more and more, and it's granted those stats, allows it to potentially become quite the menace even in the mid stages of the game. You know, you can apply other stuff to give it certain keywords, like we have units like, actually, I thought I was on the same page. We have units like Eula here, 3 mana, 3/3, that says play, give an ally spell shield and overwhelm this round, which can be used on units with Fated that you've built up throughout time. People say, well, you can always get mini-morph, but yeah, it's a 1-drop. You don't want a mini-morph, a 1-drop. So the fact that it has that snowballing potential that can allow it to stick around for a long time in the game, I feel like that's why I really like, not only I like the design of Fated, I like the fact that they went with the name Fated. It truly is fitting, and it's just neat design. It's good presentation, which is important in my opinion, and it's well done. But obviously, Eula, people are not really thinking about using her on Saga Seeker, you know, unfortunately. People are thinking about using her with Lee Sin, which is one of the things that I was mentioning earlier. Like, Eula is, and by the way, I was saying this card was interesting, but the Blinded Mystic is also, I think these two are equally interesting. But let's take it one card at a time. But there's a lot of, like, these toys are pretty neat, not gonna lie. So Eula is a really strong effect. You have a 3/3 stat line for 3, and you can give an ally spell shield and overwhelm. It can be very, very dangerous with late game finishers, which means this can come in on curve onto Saga Seeker and just apply a free buff onto it if you wish, though that doesn't make as much sense. Or it can come in the late game and give spell shield and overwhelm, a very nasty keyword combination, onto a unit that's very big, or onto Lee Sin. With Lee Sin, it allows you, even though you're passing back initiative, unless your opponent has a way to ping off the spell shield, it can put them in a very precarious position, and I could totally see this card being run as a 2-of in Lee Sin decks, which is very frightening because Lee Sin getting more and more support is something that I'm always a little bit afraid of, because he is, oh, by the way, let's do it like, he is the one of the more toxic champions in the game, has been for a while. And I feel like eventually, at some point, it'll warrant some sort of minor redesign, or maybe even another nerf, to be honest. I don't know about you, but I'm not a fan of Lee Sin in Legend of Runeterra, and this card working with it kind of scares me. But nonetheless, Eula has tremendous potential. She feels really good, and not only with Lee Sin, but she could be in Dragon decks easily as well, because even though we have Dragon's Clutch, we can also just have a unit that gives a specific Dragon Spell Shield and Overwhelm. Like, imagine a leveled up Shyvana with an Eula support. And it's just a very, very nice 3-drop for what it's doing. And the stat line is really neat. You know, the 3/3 stat line is good enough for it to definitely trade against all sorts of different things. So Eula is an outstanding card that I definitely do believe will be at the top of the meta in some sort of deck. Like, it will have representation, and it will definitely shape up the meta a little bit. We have Blinded Mystic. This card could low-key be the most powerful out of the 5, because the Wounded White Flame is limited to a specific archetype, but Blinded Mystic has more flexibility in that regard, and it's a very, very interesting design, really telling us that Targon is the region to go for silences, as if Equinox and Hush didn't already let us know. But, you know, with the introduction of Minimorph and Bandle City, just kind of made us forget that it was Targon that was supposed to be the region that does it. But then again, Bandle City does everything, so you can't really fault them for having Minimorph. But Blinded Mystic is a very interesting effect. It seems a little bit weak at first, because you're playing 4 mana for a 3/2 stat line. So a weaker stat line than, you know, his friend Eula right here, which already seems a little bit underwhelming. But the fact that you're granting an ally +1/+1 means that if you play this onto a Fated unit, you're giving something +2/+2. And then you're silencing an enemy follower. In this meta right now, even though a lot of the power comes from champions, there's a lot of very nasty followers that can have some buildup. Like, imagine using this to just shut down a Young Witch or any sort of elusive, or if you are facing also Draven Scion with the Twin Blade Revenant, you can silence that. Like, there's a lot of nasty followers running around that can be really shut down by this effect. And even if you don't find a proper follower to silence, you still get good value out of this. It's not great. If you're only playing this for the +1/+1 grant, even on a Fated unit, you could be doing a little bit more with your 4-drops. But the fact that it's not even that terrible in the worst case scenario means that this card will find slots in a lot of upcoming Target decks, in my opinion. Like, it just feels like one of the more flexible and perhaps one of the better cards because of that. It can fit in many different decks. I don't think it'll be a 3-of all the time, and time will tell, because it's actually more meta dependent than anything. But if we get, because we could have like a Fated champion, I feel like we're going to get a lot of Fated stuff. And that is really good news for Blinded Mystic in that regard, because getting that extra value out of the play effect will warrant its slot. Because the 4 mana slot tends to be contested, and Targon, that is included, because even though Fangs got nerfed, you have the Solari Sunforger, for example, which is very prevalent against aggro. And like I mentioned, whenever you combine Target with another region as well, you have to take into account the 4 drops there. Like 4 drops tend to be pretty good in Runeterra across most regions, so finding a slot for another one can be easier said than done, and we'll see if this guy is more like a 1-off or 2-off in certain decks, but I definitely expect the Blinded Mystic to see play, and I think it's really a cool design. I like cards like this that are more flexible and can just be used in several different strategies, so really like it, and definitely one of my favorites from here. But I gotta talk about the Wounded Whiteflame, man. I have a lot to say about this dragon. Some are obvious takes, others perhaps not so much, but who would have thought that we would get a 3-mana dragon? It is a Wounded White Flame. In case you don't know, the White Flame is the 4-mana 4/4 dragon from Targon, and it turns out, if you want to have a good White Flame, you have to shoot an arrow to its knee. Like, you may not want to, he may be your friend, but you will actually benefit. You will make him stronger by crippling him, because that's essentially what this card is. It's a Wounded White Flame. It's a weaker White Flame because it's hurt, but it has the Fated keyword, and it's a 3-mana dragon, and that means that if you apply something like a single combat or a strafing strike onto it, or even a concerted strike, you're getting the boost from the Fated, turning it into a 3/5. To say this card is better than the healthier counterpart is actually an understatement. It is significantly better than the White Flame. It is actually an amazing card for dragon archetypes. It is a staple as a 3-of for any dragon deck under the sun. And very important to note, it does not kill the Dragon Chow. Because, as if Dragon Chow did not have it hard enough already, you can play a Wounded White Flame, just eat off its leg, let it survive and just suffer in immense pain, and then finish it off afterwards. Everybody wins. It's fantastic. We can actually draw 2 cards off of Dragon Chow now with a 3-drop dragon that doesn't actually kill it because of the 2 power. And that is amazing. Still has the Fury keyword, which can be really scary on a 3-drop like this. Like, this thing is nuts. With the Fated keyword, this card is actually nuts. Like, it can just start snowballing and getting bigger and bigger. It can become a win condition, and it can pair with cards like Eula to threaten the opponent's Nexus for lethal at a certain stage. Like, it is actually that good of a 3-drop. And, I said a lot about Blinded Mystic, but the only reason why I didn't say this is the best card in the set by far is because it's limited to dragons for the most part, right? Even though maybe that's not the case, it's pretty good as a 3-drop in... Like, I feel like you could definitely, why not play this outside of dragon decks as well, Sure, the Dragon Chow synergy is fantastic, but a 3-drop with Fated and Fury and that stat line is just really damn neat. It's something that you want to build up on. It's a threat that you haven't committed that much mana to on its own because it is a 3-drop. And it's just a great unit to play on curve. Like, when I can already see this, like, playing a game and dropping this on turn 3 just always feels good. Like, when does it not? It's just amazing. It's a really good card. And remember, if you own a White Flame, like, shoot it in the leg. Just wound it. It'll become the Neo of dragons, apparently. Because logic and reason, we stand together, reminds me of a Yu-Gi-Oh card. I saw somebody like tweet about it, and I did play a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh myself, and it's a very similar image. It is a combat trick for Targon that says give 2 allies +1/+2 this round. This card reminds me of more like defensively oriented combat tricks, but the big difference between this card and the likes of Twin Disciplines and Troll Chant, so it's probably more similar to Troll Chant in that regard, is that it's 3 mana. You're playing 3 mana for it, but you're getting a lot of stats. Like, this card can allow you to easily preserve 2 units on the board, and potentially even get an optimal trade with that +1 power. Like, the +1/+2 seems like not much, but when you're applying it to 2 units, like, it's very strong, especially if those units are Fated. Like, imagine if you have a Wounded White Flame and you got, Thor here on the board, and you apply a We Stand Together, and then you give them +2/+3. And +1/+1 out of that boost is permanent as well. So this package alone, like these 5 cards, are already a massive deal for a lot of target decks and open up a lot of interesting ideas for deck building. And I like that, you know, they're also not like strictly meant to be in specific, because you can play, you know, faded cards. Like this sort of keyword allows you to mix with several different regions. Like there's no, I mean, naturally there's gonna be some regions that work out better, but I don't feel like this is gonna be just a one region combination sort of thing, which I find very exciting because that opens up opportunities in deck building, and I really like it. So overall, these, like, considering their target cards, I am actually shocked at how much I like them, because like I said, I'm not the biggest target fan, but maybe I will turn into one because I really like what they did here, and I think they deserve the props for it. So I've been rambling about this card for 15 minutes, and that feels a little bit excessive, so I'm just gonna stop talking. But I felt like I said what I need to say. Let me know what you guys think about the faded keyword. What are you excited to see more on this channel? Like, do you want a dragon deck right off the bat with Wounded White Flame? Or do you want me to focus on perhaps some more faded synergy? I mean, we have to see what the other cards are, and we of course have to wait for the reveal of the champion. I've seen people mention that it's going to be Pantheon because of the design of the followers. I do know a little bit about that champion actually. He's kind of like this Spartan sort of like a warrior that's, you know, like has some divine links. I don't know. I'm not really sure. I'd have to look into it, but it looks like a cool champion, and I wonder what they will be doing with it. But I do definitely expect something revolving around faded now that we've seen this keyword and everything. So yeah, I'm gonna stop rambling. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think. Let me know what champion you're expecting to be revealed soon. I'll see you guys tomorrow.